you know, the Chinese, most of the time, the problem is not what you say, but how you say it. Now, if you see me in action in Chinese with the Chinese, I'm very critical. When I go to the party school, I'm very critical. If they think you're a friend of China, and they trust you, everything is for discussion. And we talk about the problems of all the problems, even the most delicate ones, in the question of political reform and press freedom. If you read any of my blogs on China, which are, you could say, critical, and then you put yourself in the shoes of the Chinese reading it, you won't find anything offensive there. I got involved with China first because when Chris Patton became a commissioner, the Chinese ambassador, whom I knew, asked me for help that Beijing and Patton didn't actually see eye to eye, and he had to develop a relationship. And for the Chinese, it's difficult how to do this. You didn't want to be rebuffed. So I said I would help, and of course I picked up the phone next day to Chris. And his answer was, oh, we'll be puzzling how to do this. He said, leave it to me, I'll give him a call. That was the obvious thing anybody would do. But to the Chinese ambassador, it was such a great help. And through him, I met probably the most influential Chinese person behind the throne, so to speak. And then I got a call from my Chinese colleague, would you come and meet Wen Jiabao next week in Paris? And I said, of course. I went. And he took me out to lunch afterwards with about 25 Chinese. I knew nothing of this. And the photographer, who was Wen Jiabao's own photographer, came in and presented me with this. And the significance is that, well, when I showed it to my wife, she said, oh God, we're not having it here. I said, well, I can't have it in the office until I'm dead. So she says, well, let's put it in another frame. I said, well, that's all that matters, because that gold plaque is from Chembijian to me. And you can't take a present away, and it is therefore telling you, we totally trust you. I realize that one of the big problems in our relationship with the Chinese is the contact, talking to each other informally and easily. We have dozens of meetings, dialogues, sexual at all political levels. But they're all set pieces, where one side takes a position, the other one takes a position, they have an exchange, and they go away for a few months. Well, that's not joint. That's not working together. The Monet method is totally different. So I had been intending to write a pamphlet on the Monet thinking and methodology. But no one had asked me to do it. It's a subject I lived every day, and it became rather boring. You just lay there 2-3 years. And I was with friends at the Chinese mission, and to backtrack, I had been talking to the ambassador about Monet, and they were interested because I had written a joint article with a Chinese scholar looking for the commonality between Confucius and Monet, and we found it in the word mutuality. And this kind of thing rather attracts the Chinese, so he was interested. And I was invited to talk to the entire mission on, is today's European Union a Monet-type community? I mean, no member state was ever asked that. And it was a fascinating exchange.
What sort of year was this?
Oh, we're talking about a couple of years ago. Okay. The new Ambassador Song.
Okay.
And the next stage was that after this meeting, we were talking, and I had said I was trying to get this thing done on Monet, and they said, well, I hope you're going to publish it in Chinese. So I laughed. He said, no, good idea, we'll translate it for you. Next stage, I see that at his Bruges speech, Ambassador Song is talking about Monet. Then when I went back to gave my plan to the Chinese, so I suddenly realized, wait a minute, someone wants me. So I turned it all around, and it's now called Monet Returns to China, because he lived and worked in China. And it's now in Chinese and English, and it's saying how Monet can influence the relationship. And the Chinese mission are translating it and publishing it and distributing it at their cost.
Very nice. Congratulations.
And thank you. So it's an example. Now, for me, it's a method of getting this thinking out, influencing the Chinese and influencing them in what they're doing, not putting pressure on them, but leading them down the path we want to go. Before we can go anywhere, we've got to try to understand how the other person sees the problem and its context. It sounds very simple, but there's a tendency of a minister or a commissioner to fly into Beijing. It's got a long journey, so he or she will read the briefing on the journey, get to Beijing, go to the embassy or mission, as the case may be, get a briefing, go into a meeting, have a discussion, and leave. Hasn't actually set foot in China proper. The chemistry of the people involved often overlooked. Before the major 17th Party Conference, for several weeks there was a furious discussion in the among academics and published on democracy and how far China should become democratic, and they were quoting the Scandinavian model and so on and so forth. Recently, the Chinese leaders, I can't remember if it was Wen Jiabao or Hu Jintao, said unless we democratize, we're in trouble. Now, we're not starting from Western democracy, but within the culture of China. And one of the serving generals made a speech recently about the need for greater democracy. And when you are in China, if you're sitting at a restaurant in China, no one lowers their voice if they say something that is not the right thing. It's not that kind of society. It's don't get me wrong, it's a much more open society than you realize. And the trouble is that the party, it's wrong to call it a communist party, but the party, its aim is to stay in power, which is quite normal. And its action on blocking internet, etc., must be seen as just that, because the internet and blogging and SMSing are only controllable up to a point, particularly text messaging. So they ran a boycott. This is a public-inspired boycott against Carrefour, and they had over 1 million messages were passed within one day. And the government, in fact, stepped in and said, stop it. You're criticizing a company, 95% of what it sells is made in China, or whatever. And so it's much more complex, but they realize that the soft underbelly, the Achilles heel, is internet and mass communication.